I want to talk about the growing movement to get ICE Director Tom Homan, a devout Catholic, excommunicated from the Catholic Church. Now, I'm an ex-Presbyterian, and I would say the majority of my knowledge about the Catholic Church consists within the conclave fandom. But I found out recently that Tom Homan is a devout Catholic from a devout Catholic family. The guy who is snatching up immigrants, most of whom are Catholic, and stuffing them into concentration camps, violating their due process rights. This man says that he is a devout Catholic. And there has been a growing call on social media from people who are in the Catholic Church to seek Homan's excommunication. Now, I could not tell you in detail what that process would be like. I need to get more educated on what it takes to excommunicate somebody from the Catholic Church, but considering I'm over and over and over seeing actual practicing Catholics who are saying that is something they would like the church leadership to pursue. I will read up more on it. If you know more than me, please help explain to me in the comments what is involved in excommunication for Catholics. I do know that attending Mass is an important part of the Catholic faith practice. And what we're seeing across the country is that immigrants are afraid to show up and practice their religion. Tom Homan and what he's doing with ICE is making other Catholics afraid to practice their religion. And you might say, like, well, Angela, what do you mean by that? Why would they not be able to go to church? Well, that's because way back in January, one of the first things that the Trump regime did is that they removed a Biden order that prevented ICE from snatching people from schools, hospitals, and churches. So ICE can now raid churches while a service is going on and snatch up, kidnap immigrants. The Los Angeles Times had an article about this on July 11th. It's called A Crisis of Faith. ICE raids force some churches to take extraordinary action. I'm going to quote just a tiny bit from this article here. It says, "A month of sweeping immigration enforcement actions has sent people underground, leaving businesses empty and upending daily life across Southern California. It's also sparked a crisis of faith for many Catholics who have spent their lives worshiping at Sunday Mass and are now questioning whether it's safe to connect with God in a public space." Land of the free and home of the brave, y'all, right? How many of us had ancestors who came to this country in order to pursue religious liberty, in order to be able to practice their faith openly and freely, worship how they wanted to worship? And now we are seeing, because of the American Gestapo and the reign of terror that they are implementing across this country, Catholics are afraid to practice their faith. And in what the Los Angeles Times calls an extraordinary move, Bishop Alberto Rojas of the Diocese of San Bernardino told his diocese of 1.2 million people that they could stay home on Sundays to avoid Mass if they were concerned about immigration sweeps. This came after arrests near or local churches in the past couple of weeks. The bishop said in a statement, "I want our immigrant communities to know that their church stands with them and walks with them through this trying time." Bishop Rojas's decision signals that the church's mission encompasses a higher calling to embrace the downtrodden, welcome the stranger, and distance itself from policies that dehumanize people. The church sees that mission as a higher kind of patriotism, the focus on caring for humanity and calling on, demanding that the government do so as well, holding the government accountable and protecting people from the inhumane things the government is doing. Those are things that we are seeing Catholic leadership say are important values for them to embrace, important work for them to take up. This is not just happening in California. The diocese in Nashville, Tennessee, said that following ICE raids back in May, no Catholic was obligated to attend Mass if they felt their safety was at risk. So I didn't really realize this, but according to this LA Times piece, for Catholics, historically, not attending Mass on Sunday was seen as a potentially, quote, very serious sin. Interesting that devout Catholic ICE Director Homan is not committing a very serious sin by depriving other Catholics of the ability to attend Mass. I think it's also important to note here, there have been multiple reports from Alligator Auschwitz, that's the concentration camp in the Everglades, that immigrants who are being detained there are also being deprived of the ability to practice their faith. They've had Bibles taken away from them. So I don't know whether what Homan is doing is worthy of excommunication, but I think if you're Catholic, it's worth asking your spiritual leaders, it's worth asking your community, when do his actions cross a line? When has he committed sufficient harm against other Catholics? When is he sinning against other Catholics to the extent that the church needs to formally address it? We've seen Catholics who have been snatched on their way to church or on church grounds, right? So part of the reason the bishop made this declaration is that 2 immigrants who were near church property, and from what I've read, where they're going to or leaving a church service, were snatched by ICE. And then on June 20th, federal agents picked up a longtime parishioner from Our Lady of Lourdes Church in Montclair who was on church property. And there have been multiple other reports of immigrants who have been on Catholic church property who have been snatched by ICE. Now, ICE had a response, and you might think, if you read it not very carefully, that they are refuting these claims that people have been snatched from church property or from going to and from church. But when you look at the details of it, the statement by Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security, Tricia McLaughlin, I've talked about her plenty in the past, says the accusation that ICE entered a church to make an arrest is false. It goes on in that statement to describe the longtime parishioner of that church as an illegal alien repeatedly. Just this consistent move from the folks in the American Gestapo to dehumanize immigrants. Now, there's a post that's circulating on Facebook and Threads claiming that Tom Homan has called the Bishop of San Bernardino a liar, but that's not something that I've been able to substantiate. I've only been able to find this statement from Tricia McLaughlin where she, talks around it. They weren't arrested from inside the church, but the Catholic Church has said they were on church property. Now, it's not just Bishop Rojas who is speaking out. Archbishop Gomez of the Los Angeles Archdiocese has issued a statement as well. I'm going to read it in just a second. But it's important to note that this is not something new amongst the Catholic Church. Whatever issues you or I or anybody else may have with the Catholic Church, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, as well as Catholic bishops in Mexico, have been calling for comprehensive immigration reform for many, many, many years. They've called the United States immigration system overly complex and unjust. I completely agree. Now, of the Trump regime specifically, last month, Archbishop Jose Gomez of the LA Archdiocese said that the Trump administration offered no immigration policy beyond the stated goal of deporting thousands of people each day. That's completely accurate. There is no immigration reform. There's no policy beyond the grift. They just want to funnel our taxpayer dollars into these businesses that are making insane amounts of profit, kidnapping immigrants off the streets and stuffing them into concentration camps, and then sending us, the taxpayer, an invoice. That's all this is, right? It's an ethnic cleansing. It is the furthering of Trump's authoritarian agenda. It's also a grift. The Archbishop went on to say, this is not policy, it is punishment. It's not even punishment. There's been no crimes committed by these people, right? It's just abuse. It's just human rights violations. Okay, so he said, this is not a policy, it is punishment. It can only result in cruel and arbitrary outcomes. Already we are hearing stories of innocent fathers and mothers being wrongly deported with no recourse to appeal. It's not just that, dozens of little children who are American citizens have been kicked out of this country. I mean, devout Catholic Tom Homan has stated that if a minor child is an American citizen and their mother is undocumented, that he will send that child across the border with their mom. He will kick that child, he will exile that child out of this country, violate their constitutional rights as American citizens. When we talk about the pillars of support under any authoritarian regime, we also have to remember that there are likewise supporters of pro-democracy human rights groups that are trying to push back, that are trying to resist the authoritarian creep in this country. And I think we have an opportunity here for the Catholic Church to be a supporter of democracy, to be a supporter of human rights. We have already seen such a willingness from Catholic leadership to push back on this immigrants issue. After all, millions and millions of undocumented folks in this country are Catholic. The Trump regime likes to act like they have religion in their corner, that God is on their side. What can we do? What can we do to help the Catholic Church be a vocal opposition, vocally non-compliant with this regime, and join us in pushing back more vigorously against what they're doing? Is there a chance here for something like excommunicating Tom Homan or J.D. Vance? What bolder, braver steps can we see the incredibly powerful institution of the Catholic Church take in order to, this time, be on the right side of history?